and I'm a personal development coach and an author. And really, I came into contact with this concept and also Dr. Bob Rakowski back in March of 2017, and I'm thankful every single day that I have. Dr. Bob is a very, very special individual, but he's also the most knowledgeable person I have ever met on clinical health. He's taught the topic for almost 3 decades globally to doctors and health professionals who are at the top of their own game. And so, you know, Dr. Bob told me recently that in his clinic, he is the clinic director of the Natural Medicine Center in Houston, Texas. And he has worked with some of the top athletes on the planet, many of whom are, you know, Olympic gold medalists and so on. He had 50 Olympians if you put the two last Olympics together, and some very successful people in their own right in the NFL, WWE, and so on and so forth, as you can see here. But also he's worked with some very, very sick people who have been effectively written off by the mainstream medicine sort of industry, we'll call it, and helped them, many of them, back to really good situation in their life. You know, he told me recently he hasn't lost a cancer patient in 6 years in his clinical practice, which, you know, my understanding of that scenario is that it's normal to lose people. So, you know, that really stood out for me just on a very personal level, because I think we all know people who are dealing with some pretty severe scenarios. And Dr. Bob has insights into all of the underlying conditions that create these issues that we are all dealing with, and that many of our loved ones are dealing with. So my purpose for putting on this call is a couple of different reasons. One primarily is so that any of you are not already familiar with Dr. Bob, what he's doing, and also what, because we work together as well, what we are sharing, that I want to put it on your radar. Okay, I want to put Dr. Bob on your radar. I want to give Dr. Bob a chance to share his incredible knowledge and huge heart with you guys, but also for you to get a chance at the Q&A section at the end to ask questions that may be either personal to you or maybe your clients are dealing with. And that could be really beneficial in not just helping yourself, but helping other people as well. At the very end of the call, we will go through some of the financials of how this may apply to you in your life, and that's another concept. But for the moment, I'm going to pass it across to Dr. Bob Rakowski. Dr. Bob, take it away.
Beautiful. Hey, quick question. Is the share of the screen still there, or did we lose that?
We lost that, but it's coming back now. That's it's coming
Okay,
on.
beautiful. So for whatever reason, it seems when I put PowerPoint into the presentation mode, it somehow doesn't behave as well as I want it to. But thank you for that great intro. And I'm going to start with maybe just saying a few simple words. You know, I started my clinical practice after a career as an engineer. And I remember I had a great advisor in engineering. And he said, Bob, whatever you do, you always want to have great mentors, in any field. So I worked with people that had worked with world-class athletes. And so by my second year, I had seen professionals in nearly every sport. And then I started studying under people that literally were research directors for Nobel Prize winners. Like Jeff Bland was the research director for a guy named Linus Pauling, who won 2 Nobel Prizes unshared, and started getting a deep look at nutritional biochemistry. And then ultimately I started working with people that were, bringing back people that had essentially no other option in terms of care. And even though I think natural medicine should be the first attempt, it was often the last resort. And beautifully, we've got a lot of people that are, alive 25 plus years after they were supposed to be gone. And, I always say, that's when someone moves on, that's no man's call, but certainly we all have a thing that we can do to help people move forward. So starting with this quote, Gary Keller wrote the book, The One Thing. And I love books and I love knowledge. And within this book, he keeps asking, what is the one thing that you can do that in doing so would make everything else either easier or unnecessary? So I've had the joy of actually presenting at conferences with Dr. Dean Ornish, who probably at someday should win a Nobel Prize. But one of his most recent studies with the National Institutes of Health is that when they put people on a healthy program, they were able to reduce the expression or turn down, maybe we call it a dimmer switch or light switch, on over 500 genes related to cancer. And Dr. Ornish was being interviewed by CNN, and the reporter asked a great question. She said, well, Dr. Ornish, if these changes are so simple and they appear to be, why aren't more people doing it? And his long answer was, we associate pain with change, we associate pain with diet, we associate pain with exercise. And his takeaway was this: sustainable changes must be pleasurable. So when we look, we are actually offering what I believe to be, and anytime you make a claim about something being the world's best, the world's healthiest, gourmet coffee, tea, shakes, hot chocolate. And I'll show a few testimonials from that, but here's what I think is the distinct advantage of what we're offering. People that drink coffee and tea or tea, which is about 95+% of the population, do so every day without ever need to be reminded, and they don't ever plan to stop. So, I had a patient that I worked up just yesterday, and it's been a patient that's been a patient for well over 20 years. And she'll come in and we'll put her on a program, and whatever she's dealing with, we have a 20-year record of helping her get over it. And that's kind of nice. So she's created conditions, turn them around, created conditions, turn them around. But why doesn't she stay healthy? And that is because it's a new routine for her to take supplements. And so anytime we add something new, we have a little bit of a challenge. But coffee and tea is not new. It's something people do every day. And what if that were the healthiest thing they put in their body, or maybe even the healthiest thing available? So the herb that we use is called Ganoderma lucidum. It's actually known as the miraculous king of herbs. I'm fascinated that my screen looks like it's got like scribbling on it, and I have no idea where that came from, but we'll work through that. But when I tell people about the king of herbs, it's pretty fascinating that, most people will know that the king of rock and roll was Elvis Presley. And he's been dead over 40 years, and he still earns over $50 million a year on work that he did. Michael Jackson died about a decade ago. He still earns over $150 million a year. Well, the U.S. market for Ganoderma alone is estimated to be at $2.5 billion this year, and worldwide approaching $40 billion. And so we have USDA certified organic Ganoderma, which, when you look at kings, right, there's only one king of rock and roll, one king of pop, one king of herbs, and it's in that same category of dominance. So just a few weeks ago, or I guess now it's a month ago, I did an update on how many peer-reviewed medical studies there were on Ganoderma. Ganoderma goes by three names: Ganoderma, reishi, and lychee, but well over 3,000 studies. This individual here, his name is Paul Stamets, and his TED Talk is entitled 6 Ways That Mushrooms Will Save the World. And, he goes into them being antiviral, antibacterial, great source of food, detoxifies the environment and everything else. I'm a big fan of 7s, but the 7th way that he potentially didn't mention was this could actually be the best business opportunity that any of us will ever see. So I've got a couple different Facebook pages. One is a public figure page where is I think it's called Dr. Bob Rakowski. And I posted something last year about a girl who beat stage 4 endometrial cancer. The reason I mention that now is because her brother is a professional researcher. And oddly enough, I hadn't found this PubMed study, this peer-reviewed medical study, but he sent it to me. He says, Bob, this stuff is so powerful, over 400 active compounds with clinical benefit proven in all these health conditions. He just asked, why in the world is this certainly not standard of care for cancer therapy? And why shouldn't anybody else be taking it, or everybody else be taking it if they can? Well, we're certainly trying to make that happen. The reason I mentioned my public figure page is I filmed a woman yesterday who had a stage 4 sarcoma. She's 80 years old, a big mass in her chest that had metastasized to her lungs and was growing very, very fast. The family wasn't interested in doing chemotherapy. They felt it would be too harsh on their 80-year-old grandmother. But now, after just 6 months of care, completely stopped the growth of this super fast growing tumor, and the metastasis is completely gone. And so that's pretty phenomenal. And if anybody wants to watch that video, that's kind of fun, but let's just hit some high points here. So it's great for the immune system, prevents cardiovascular, anti-inflammatory, good for pain, prevents the toxicity of certain drugs, promotes sleep, antibacterial, antiviral, good for the liver, et cetera, et cetera. And then another study that shows so many different things, but one of the things I want to tell you, since Ganoderma is a big market, whenever there's market, there's competition. And so most of the Ganoderma is actually grown in a plastic bag in the world. And since they don't use herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, they can actually call this organic. What we use is USDA certified organic Ganoderma grown in the natural environment with as many quality certifications or more than any nutrition company that I've ever seen. I happen to think stress is the biggest killer on the planet. And so how does Ganoderma affect that? Well, it's actually shown in human clinical trial to have the exact same calming effect as a prescription dose of the drug Valium. So whereas Ganoderma has many, many side benefits, we'll get through some of those. Valium has side effects, and if it's mixed with alcohol, it can even kill people. So Ganoderma is in our hot chocolate, and I'll show a couple studies of kids that have done so much better with this. But this was a mom that was at a health talk I gave years ago, and she said, you know, my son's struggling in school. They want to put him on attention deficit drugs. Do you think the hot chocolate could help? You know, and my answer is always, you know what, it certainly won't hurt. Let's give it a shot. And so literally within 1 week, that was the difference in this young man's printing. This was a great testimonial just published a few weeks ago about a kid resolving from stuttering. So I'm going to blow it up maybe a little bit or show the cute picture, but literally 4 days, 4 hot chocolates, stutter had gone away. And so if you start looking at this, you know, the parent wrote, they can't even breathe when he's trying to talk because he's just having a hard time, you know, getting anything to come out, and breath gets in the way. So imagine having that challenge and then having it gone away just in 4 days. Pretty powerful there. This person published what they had on their Fitbit about how deep and refreshing and nourishing their sleep is, even with coffee. And that's pretty powerful. So most people can drink our coffee very late at night with no issues. And I tell people 9 out of 10 people that have issues with caffeine can do ours immediately. So this young lady had problems reading and writing. I pulled this off of the Facebook post from her mother because her mother is just on a mission, you know, to help the world with this circumstance. But literally, they gave the child spores, and now they're open to giving them hot chocolate. But the family didn't want to give her any sugar because they're thinking it would be hard on her brain. We should get an update because now they're giving her hot chocolate daily, and she's loving it. But literally, just a few weeks of giving her Ganoderma, the teachers are absolutely shocked at how much better her schoolwork is, how much better her reading is, how much better her writing is. When we start looking at the biggest problems on planet Earth, I think stress is number 1. I think toxins actually fill in with number 2. And for most people, this will seem to be a very strange case for me to be talking about now. But this, you can Google the case of the frozen addicts and find this case. But this is a group of people in Los Angeles that actually injected a form of synthetic heroin called MPTP and woke up the next day with Parkinson's. Well, real bad deal for them. But medicine said, we've got a way to induce Parkinson's in the animal model. Maybe we can study Parkinson's and find a cure. So you can look up MPTP. That's pretty simple. But they've used it since that case of the frozen addicts, since the late 1980s, to induce Parkinson's in the animal model. And here's what it says. It says MPTP causes permanent symptoms of Parkinson's disease. And that was until December of 2018 when this peer-reviewed medical study was published showing that Ganoderma can actually improve the symptoms of MPTP-induced Parkinson's. So, you know, if this toxin is so bad that can do permanent damage to the brains, and these people have been suffering with it for, you know, a long, long time at this point, and they've used it in the animal model, if Ganoderma can undo that, just think about how powerful it can be against all the toxins that we're exposed to on a regular basis. This is a young lady in South Africa that started drinking hot chocolate. And literally within 6 days, The difference is absolutely amazing. And sometimes people will ask, well, how in the world can you get the results that fast? And certainly we have a theory, and the theory is that there's literally so much complete nutrition and also literally the information of healing within this plant, because it's, you know, again, the miraculous king of herbs, that people can get profound changes. Literally an hour and a half ago, I did a phone consult with a woman that actually suffered from a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot in the lungs that originally came from the legs that the doctors determined was a side effect of the birth control pill. So if you look up birth control pill and blood clots, you'll find that it can be very, very dangerous. But at any rate, within 2 months, taking Ganoderma spores, we started out with 2 every waking hour for a couple of weeks. And then I think we were taking 9 a day. She absolutely completely dissolved her blood clot. And they said medically, it usually takes about 6 months to get that done. So why do I mention this here? Well, there's a study where they gave rats a clotting agent called cholic acid. And they know they can give them a dose that will either kill or paralyze 100% of the animals. And then they said, okay, how can we prevent this damage? And they found out that Ganoderma would actually prevent the clots from this horrible clotting agent at a dose of 60 micrograms per kilogram body weight. And I may blow up the bottom to show you that it actually took 10 to 20 milligrams per kilogram body weight of aspirin. And so if you start looking at that and saying, what would happen if I took 10 to 20 milligrams per kilogram body weight? Well, I'm 100 and, or the 70 kilogram male. If you use kilograms, I think some of you use stones, some of you use pounds. That's 154 pounds. But for me, I would need 9 baby aspirin a day, which are basically 81 milligrams. So, and that's just for 10 milligrams per day. I guarantee you, if I took 9 baby aspirin a day, even for 1 day, in a very short period of time, I'd burn a hole in my gut. And that which got absorbed in my system, I would bruise anywhere and everywhere if I bumped anything. So one of the things I tell people is it's very, very clear in the literature that Ganoderma prevents abnormal clotting, but does not promote abnormal bleeding. And this is massive because when people take blood thinners, it does just the opposite. It prevents normal clotting and actually promotes abnormal bleeding. And that's something that we don't want to do. When we start looking at moving the body, I've worked with a lot of athletes, but Ulysses was one of these guys that had 1 cup of coffee and he joined our coffee team immediately. He says, holy cow, this is great for my body. I'm getting a better pump, I recover better, I can focus more. All is that is really, really good. Well, most of the people we're going to connect with are not world champion athletes, but we have a condition known as fibromyalgia where people just suffer with severe pain all the time. And Ganoderma is known to dramatically reduce that pain in 6 weeks. When we look at another painful condition, rheumatoid arthritis, there's a double-blind placebo-controlled trial showing that Ganoderma actually has better pain relief than the drugs for it. So some famous athletes that fell in love with Ganoderma right off the bat, Greg Norman, is a guy that had a cup of coffee and he said, holy cow, this is really, really good. And he noticed a big difference in his brain. Now I'll tell you about 1 in 10 people that actually have a cup of our coffee will feel that kind of difference in their brain. And Greg Norman's a venture capitalist. He's one of the top 20 richest athletes of all time. So he had his legal team, look together and say, what's this company all about? Maybe I could buy the company. He literally put in an offer to buy Organos. So these 3 guys, the owners, basically said, you know what, we're not for sale, but if you like, you can actually start distributing this coffee on your own, which Greg Norman did. And by the way, so did Manny Pacquiao. So fun people in the business. Finally, we'll deal with malnutrition. The Global Nutrition Report says every country on planet Earth has malnutrition. In developed countries, they call it overconsumption, undernutrition. In third world, they still have some people that aren't getting enough food and nutrition. But Ganoderma is the most nutrient-dense food so far that's been studied. So what I like to tell people is there's 50,000 edible plants on planet Earth. I doubt all 50,000 have been tested, but of the ones they've tested so far, Ganoderma has the most nutrition. a lot more vitamin C than oranges, more calcium than milk, more omega-3 than tuna. It's a complete protein. And we go on and on and on. And this was a medical study estimating the Ganoderma market, US alone, in 2019 would be 2.5 billion. Worldwide, about 40 billion. So we have it in coffee and tea and things that people do every day, including soap and toothpaste. So I want to take a little tangent about maybe the interconnectedness of the planet and the interconnectedness of biochemistry. And a lot of my mentors talk about our connections in our body being almost web-like in interaction. So this can be a very dizzying picture, but this is a picture of human biochemistry, and all of these biochemical reactions can occur within a single cell. So if I really blow that up, you can see that there's a lot of detail in that graph, and then start shrinking it down and saying, holy cow, that's in every cell every single day. Well, the drug model says, this pathway is really interesting to us. If we can drug this pathway, maybe we can move forward. So one of the topics that's in the medical literature is this thing called NRF2. So notice this PubMed study says this. It says NRF2 is dysfunctional essentially in a number of serious problems in human physiology. And therefore it's a very attractive drug target. Well, what we know is if you start pushing around at certain levels of chemistry and forcing a direction, there's pros and cons to that. So I literally just pulled up this article yesterday. And though it says, although NRF2 was first perceived as a tumor suppressor that can inhibit tumor initiation and cancer metastasis, more recent data reveals its role as a pro-cancer factor. So, what are we going to do about that? And this here actually shows many of the conditions that it's connected to. But here, let me just tell you what my takeaway is on this. If you're going to regulate NRF2, there's many things that can do it. You're always better off doing it natural than drugs. And so there are certainly a lot of products out there that can regulate NRF2. And there's a lot of publications coming out about that. So since we're talking about Ganoderma, there's literally 136 studies showing Ganoderma as a natural NRF2 regulator. NRF1, nowhere near the studies, so Ganoderma's on that as well. And then there's also CBD oil, which is really, really popular right now. And so almost 100 studies on that as being an NRF2 regulator, and 13 as an NRF1. So if we recall that human physiology is very complex, CBD is part of a lot, of marijuana. That's what's pretty popular now, part of hemp and other things like that. And there's also other components to it like THC. But here's a point I want to make out. There are over 85 identified to date cannabinoids. And when we start working with whole plants, we get the idea that the whole plant is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's really what we try to focus on. So we use the whole plant Ganoderma. So notice this, full spectrum cannabis oil, and they use FSO, full spectrum oil, contains THC and therefore is illegal wherever every place that cannabis is illegal. The other question I might have is, since the whole plant is better than the parts, what will actually happen to the CBD market when marijuana is legal? And that's coming sometime soon. So I'm going to blow up this little picture on the right to show different things. But for different medical conditions, whether it's neurological or whatever, we can see that there's a variety of CBDs and THCs that are valuable. Whether even we're talking about stress, or how about here, muscular dystrophy, we can see that there are more components active. And we probably want to say, yeah, we don't want to just dive in on any part of the web because we know that that can cause problems. And even though NRF2 is a major regulator, when it's naturally regulated, we have benefit. If we start pushing in a certain direction, we can actually, the data shows, increase the risk of cancer. So I like this quote about patterns. I've read different books on intelligence, and I just like this quote. This physicist says, you know, a year spent in artificial intelligence is enough to make anyone believe in God. Well, why am I bringing up God in this? God's fingerprint appears to be at every level of the universe. So this is actually the biggest known picture of the universe, the dark matter of the universe. And some might realize it looks like a brain cell, which, by the way, they're both connected, just like the internet. When we're thinking about the internet because we're using it right now. But there's a new term, and anybody can Google this. It's called the Wood Wide Web. And if I blow this up, you'll see that mushrooms are actually considered to be the internet of the earth. They literally connect every plant, every animal, everything. So let's drive forward and look at this pattern recognition. So largest known map of brain connections looks like the largest map of the entire universe, which also looks like the mycelium network or the root system of the mushrooms. And by the way, it also reflects the business model that we have. So, you know, I like to call him Sir Lloyd, but Sir Lloyd, I think he'll officially earn that title in a few years, you know, said, hey, there might be a business opportunity here. So literally anybody that says, I think Ganoderma is valuable, I think that people will continue to drink their coffee and tea, and as long as ours tastes good, they'll do it on a regular basis. And I always say, always just take the taste test because you're going to realize ours is delicious. But literally for $50, you can buy an organo distribution. Now there's other inventory packages you can purchase that'll get you going faster. But anybody that you introduce the business to also has the potential to sign up other people. Now, if people know about how networking works, we actually build 2 teams of business, and there's no limit to how many people you can personally bring into your business. And there's also no limit to how many people the people you bring in can bring in. But you build 2 teams of business, and once you start building, people that you add down the future will actually benefit from people they never met. So Sir Lloyd's a massive builder, and being on his team would be a distinct advantage. But one thing I want to tell you is that Organo actually has 7 different ways of paying people. And we know people that they just absolutely ended up on the right team where they got help from their sponsor and people above them building, and they got one strong builder that they personally sponsored. So if you have one strong builder that shows up, you know, anywhere on the same line that you and the sponsor is helping to build, and then one that you personally sponsor, we have an individual that literally has earned $1 million without signing up a single frontline leader. Now that's $1 million over 7 years. So it's not like overnight, about $150,000 a year, just by being on the right team and finding one builder, not personally, but actually, you know, 4 levels down to the person he signed up. So pretty powerful there. But so just in summary, Ganoderma is considered the king of herbs, top superfood on the planet. All of ours is USDA certified organic. We've infused it in things that people do every single day. We've got the medical studies to back it up. We have the testimonials to back it up. And we have the leadership to build a massive team. And so if this makes sense to you from a business model, well, then we welcome you and we honor you, and we'd be excited to have you join our team. And if it doesn't make sense from a business model, I always tell people, I can't imagine anybody not realizing that a healthier choice makes sense. So if you want to try a 1-box challenge, I always tell people, buy a box of our coffee or tea or hot chocolate or whatever, drink it until it's gone at the end of that box. If you're not 100% satisfied with how it tastes and how it makes you feel, at that point, I'm more than happy to refund every penny spent. And in 7 years, almost 7 years of doing this, I have not refunded a penny. No one's asked. So with that said, I didn't see that anybody had typed in a question. Sir Lloyd, would you like to open up to questions, add a comment? What makes sense to you at this moment?
Yes, absolutely. And so first of all, thank you very much. And I'm sure for some of us who are watching, this is a lot of information. Okay, so for that, we're recording, and you'll be able to watch the replay if there's any particular points that you want to review and understand a little bit more fully. apart from that, for those of you who are already in the health industry and understand, and were part of the reasons why we put the questions together in this order, this will make a lot of sense to you. So I think for the people who are looking at this, you know, the health aspect and also the business aspect, I just wanted you, Dr. Bob, to share this one last thing before we open it up for Q&A, because I know people did have specific health questions, which was what you shared with Mr. Eric Higgins and Miss Eloisa Higgins on our trip across the Caribbean recently, which was how you moved from traditional business where you'd already done over $1 million in 3 different businesses. So you'd been doing very well. Excuse me, I stand correct. But, you know, certainly doing very well by all accounts. And then moving across to this model and how that's benefited based on your time investment and all that sort of stuff. I'd love just for you to share that on this call, please.
Sure. So, you know, Lloyd, one, I have to compliment you on your work ethic. I have not met too many people, and Mr. Higgins and his beautiful wife, Eloisa Higgins, amazing work ethic. And what I can tell you is I've literally, to build certain businesses, you know, put in 100 hours a week. And that would be for the course for a couple of years. And I got to tell you, you get really burned out at 100 hours a week. But let's do some fairly simple math. If I work 100 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, that's going to be 5,000 hours a year. And if I do that 2 straight years, that's 10,000 hours. Now, you have rapidly built a really big team, but let's use a simple number of 100. If by the time you get 100 people on your team, if each of these people can just find an hour a week to sit down with someone and share a cup of coffee, they literally can put more effort into building a business in their spare time. And I know a lot of busy people, and even when I was working 100 hours a week, I guarantee you I had an hour, you know, to sit down and eat lunch and have a cup of coffee. So by the time you get 100 people, it's very easy to get that 100 hours in every single week. Now, what's the next step from that? Well, what happens when you get 1,000 people on your team? Well, now imagine people being able to put in, you know, now we'll give them 2 hours a week. So if each person puts in 2 hours a week, that's going to be 2,000 hours, which is, you know, going to be something that you couldn't do really killing yourself in 4 or 5 months. And then the next phase from that, we actually now have a little over 11,000 people on our team. And what that's transitioned to, even though we have some very, very successful businesses, we make more money in our sleep from the team that we built than we do from our active efforts in our other businesses. So it's really the leverage of numbers. And I think it's attributed to J. Paul Getty, who may have been the world's first billionaire. But he said, you know, I'd rather have 1% of 100 people's efforts than 100% of my own. And that's just good math. And so what people should know is that, you know, everybody has different people that invite them in, but part of what we're sharing here and offering is a partnership with us. And, you know, I tell people that I have a vested interest in your success. I know you take that seriously. I know Mr. and Mrs. Higgins take it very, very seriously. And so by joining a team like this, you have a distinct advantage. If anybody's ever been to a networking convention, you know, for most people, they bring them into the business and then they rarely have a conversation after that. But with us, it's a true partnership.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I love hearing that story, because I can see the vision of the future for myself and for the whole team as well to duplicate that success. So I'm going to open it up for those who wanted to ask some specific health questions. So I'll ask you to unmute yourself, hopefully not all at the same time. And then if you have your camera on, please turn the camera on so you can raise your hand so we can see you have a question. And ask any questions that you have in relation to what we've discussed here or your own health. And I know some of you sent me messages already with your health questions, so you feel free to ask them live right now.
So, Sir Lloyd, I want to ask you one piece of advice for the recording. Since these are going to be health questions in personal, should I stop the recording at this point, or do you want me to continue?
I think we can keep it recording just for the first one or two, and then maybe knock it off. So we're going to ask you guys, and actually what I'll do is I'll just go through and ask each person individually if they have any questions.
Well, I see that. I see Carla had unmuted herself, so I'm thinking she wants to say something. So Carla?
Yeah,
Okay.
if that's all right. Could I just read out what I texted Lloyd, because that would be quicker than me fumbling for words. So I just say that since using organo products, I've experienced an improvement in a number of symptoms that I've had for many years. And while I can now drink coffee without the negative side effects, yet one persists. I have always had a tendency towards dry skin and hair, and caffeine has made it worse, and unfortunately still does. So that despite a sense of increased well-being, I'm not sure I should continue drinking the organo coffee, planning on trying the red tea, and if the problem persists, use capsules only. I was told by a Reiki practitioner decades ago that my liver and gallbladder can't handle fats and to stay away from animal fats. I do believe the dryness is due to that non-absorption of fats. Have you had similar cases which were helped by Ganoderma?
Well, so whenever I do a consult with patients, I always let them know that the first question we want to answer is what's causing the problem. And so your practitioner was probably accurate saying that you had liver and gallbladder challenges, but by staying away from fat, you're going to decrease your body's own natural oils and natural lubrication. Our skin makes oils, our hair makes oils. That's why we have to wash it. Otherwise, we have a problem. And so if you're not giving your body the raw materials that it needs to get better, there's no way it's going to get better. So I like the way you led into the question saying, you know what, I'm drinking this and so many problems went away. That's because it's really healthy. And it's also really healthy for your liver and gallbladder. And that's proven. But if you're not giving your body what it needs to be healthy, you know, even though the Ganoderma does have more omega-3 than tuna, by the time you have a cup of coffee, how much omega-3 are you getting? Not enough. And so you've got to have those high quality fats within your diet. If you don't give yourself the building blocks that you need, your body's giving you a signal. And so dry hair, that might be annoying, but understand the oils make your cells flexible and resilient. And so just as your hair is not flexible and resilient, your cells are actually manifesting that to some degree as well. So you've got to get your body what it needs to be healthy. So I don't think we stop a super healthy choice which is not going to solve the problem anyways. It's not caffeine that's the problem. It's the lack of raw materials that in the past was related to liver and gallbladder problems. So could Ganoderma help liver gallbladder? It often does. But they're simple enzymes. And so we're all entitled to our opinion, but I don't tell people, hey, look, if you have a problem with an essential nutrient, stop the essential nutrient. I say, let's maximize your absorption with enzymes like lipases. And you can get plant-based lipases that are really good and gentle on the system to help you absorb what you need. And then omega-3s are critical. Lipase, Lipase. And lipase is a generic category of enzymes that help digest fat.
Aha. And so do you think I should take that in addition to the Ganoderma then? Is that what you said?
My short answer is yes, you should. But we run a fine line. If people start asking me more specific health questions, yours is pretty simple. You know, if you're not getting essential fats, you're going to have problems. So I think you need them, and you need to have your body find a way to do it. But there's probably some very, very qualified nutrition practitioners that can, you know, maybe take you to the next level. Sometimes people do something called a gallbladder flush that moves them forward. Sometimes there's something in their biochemistry where you have a challenge with something known as methylation, where your body doesn't make taurine, where you don't make enough taurocolic acid, and that causes a gallbladder challenge. And then, by the way, sometimes I go on a rant like this, but what I like people to know is there's always a deep way of looking at things. And if we start superficial, we may not solve it, but if we go deep, we can. And you want a practitioner that's capable of going deep with your own needs, because this should be very solvable.
Right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so does anybody else have any questions? Edith, any questions coming from any of your clients? No? Okay, and then also anyone from as well from Noble Goldman, who I had initially sent this this invite out to you guys, and also many of you are also health practitioners. So from the perspective of a health practitioner, I'd love to hear some questions from you guys as well. Don't be shy, and we can get that answered for you.
So I may make a comment. So, you know, I could take you on a tour of my office. We're in my office right now. I literally just finished with patients, you know, and I closed my door, so obviously no one can hear what's going on. But if, you know, if we go up front, I have a simple display of coffee and tea. And when people come in, my staff will offer them a cup of coffee or tea. And at least 80% of people say yes. And they'll sit there in the waiting area, and that makes their wait nicer, you know, and it's anti-inflammatory, so it often makes our visits more effective for what I do. But my staff will just simply ask, you know, how do you like that? And they usually say, wow, that's really good. And then their response is, well, it's good for you too, you should get a box. And then most people do. And literally, so just with that strategy, we've sold right at about 500,000 in our clinic of Ganoderma coffee and tea. And that's, you know, that's some nice extra change, right? I don't think anybody would turn down an extra 500,000 in revenue for almost no extra effort. But after they fall in love with the product, we let them know, hey, you can be a retail customer, you can be a wholesale buyer, or you could get paid to consume or share the product. So interestingly enough, the reason you and I are talking and the reason that Mr. and Mrs. Higgins are on the Zoom is 7 years ago, a guy named Pete Cohen came to my office with his wife who had a non-operable brain tumor. And the medical experts said, yeah, you got maybe 6 months or a year, so get your affairs in order. Well, they didn't want to believe that, so they came to Houston, Texas to see a guy named Stanislaw Brzezinski has a 1/3 cure rate with that cancer. And Dr. Brzezinski and I have co-managed patients for over 25 years at this point. So he did the medical management of that case. I did the nutrition. And Hannah completely beat her brain cancer and now is cancer-free 5 years. And that's a beautiful story. But Pete reached out to me with some nutrition questions and we started talking about the coffee. And I said, Pete, there's a business opportunity here. He said, quite simply, he said, Bob, if you're in, I'm in. And his next question was, will you come to London? I said, of course. So I came to London and there's a nice video of me giving a health talk in London. But here's the bottom line. If you're a healthcare practitioner, do you think people in your waiting area would appreciate a cup of coffee or tea while they're waiting? Secondly, and I think we all know the answer to that, yes, they would. And then next, if it's actually a better choice for them, would their life be better by starting it? And I think the answer is simple on that, yes, it would. And so our most recent builder, someone who's building a massive team fast, is a practice management consultant to all types of healthcare providers. And he said, why in the world would you ever, you know, how do you say it? I don't want to use the negative of it. Why would you not consider putting something so simple to add into your practice that adds value to your patients, their life, and your financial future? Why would you not do that? And, you know, he's building a massive team fast because people say, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So with that said, I'll probably stop the recording for time length and then we can continue to move forward with questions. Do you want any wrap-up comments on that before I hit the stop recording button, Mr. Lloyd?
Yeah, just very finally, obviously Dr. Bob here is a world-leading clinical nutritionist and obviously has a practice, and many of the people within who've chosen to share this in their clinic have a clinical setting and have clients who are coming to them already for a health reason. However, I don't have any of those things. So I'm not a health practitioner, okay? I'm healthy, but I'm not a health practitioner, right? I didn't have anybody coming to me for any reasons to do with health, nor did I have a network specifically, but I decided that I would learn the skills that were necessary in order to succeed because I had a goal for my life. And in order to reach that goal, I needed a vehicle. So when somebody asked me recently, oh, so you sell coffee? I was like, no. I also sell coffee. There's a very distinct difference. Mm-hmm. So what I'm interested in and what I wanted to share with everybody on this call today is whatever it is you want, once we can establish that in a conversation, my goal is to show you how Organo as a vehicle can help you get there. And that's quite important. So I think it's important for us to look after our number one asset, which is ourselves. And if you don't look after your health, where are you going to live? You got to live here all the time. It's not a sometime thing. So you want to be in perfect health in order to have a wealthy life. You need to be healthy, because wealth is not just about money. It's about your relationships. It's about how you feel on an emotional level, and it's about how healthy you are, right? So I just want people to understand that, you know, your goal should always be just to be better every day and to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And if you're looking for a vehicle, in my opinion, this is the best that I've seen. Just simply because it duplicates so easily, you know? So that's a sort of my closing comment, Dr. Bob. So
yeah, I want to just add on top of that. So I'm going to assume that somehow, some way, everybody on this call is mostly connected through you or Mr. Eric Higgins. But either way, when you have someone who is a builder and a supporter, your ability to accumulate wealth literally takes about half the effort, because you're going to get someone that's going to be building on one leg that you get a lot of help with. You have to build the other. That's building one is easier than building two. Now, ultimately, you can build as many as you want. That's the beauty of the model. But you know, the reason we're having this Zoom together is because I'm a big fan of yours. You know, you have shown such incredible consistency, dedication, and ability to rally troops. And reality is, it doesn't take much effort to share a cup of coffee. So I think of over the 55 people that have earned over $1 million in Organo, I think of those people, I'm the only one that's a healthcare practitioner. So most of the people that are earning a lot are doing it without a health background.
excellent, excellent. Yeah, and thanks very much. And also, just guys, if you know, if any of this resonates with you, whoever invited you onto the call, it may not have been me. Whoever that was, do get back to that person, so that you can have a follow-up conversation and see how it could potentially apply to you, or any other questions you may have in relation to health. We can connect you to some groups where we share a bit more about how the health side works, if that's where your interest is only. Where the wealth side of things, we can also connect you to some groups also. So if you want to just finish up the recording, Dr. Bob, that's wonderful.
Done? Yep. Right as you had that closing comment, we were on the same page, so I'd already hit that. So we're good with that. You know, simple final comments. Try it. My favorite phrase now is that experience trumps information or trumps research. Go ahead and try it, and I think you'll have the impact like Carla, where you say, wow, this is better, this is better, this is better, this is better, this is better. And it's a better coffee where, because of the calming effect, even though someone said that caffeine was a challenge for some people, and it can be, Ganoderma buffers the effect of caffeine in a beautiful way for almost everyone instantly. And Carla, who knows, in time, it may just be that this coffee is what it takes to get your liver and gallbladder healthier, where it's easier to add healthy fats to your diet.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Bob. And for everyone else for taking your time, thank you very much also. And I'll leave the closing comment to yourself, Dr. Bob.
Well, it's an easy close when it's with you. You're a master builder. You're as an ambitious a human as I've met. You're profoundly consistent. And if I were, you know, joining tomorrow and you introduced me to it, I'd be honored to be on your team. So I'm very blessed that you actually are on my team. But you know, there's not many Lloyd Chambers out there, but people have different skills and talents and levels of hunger. But as I'll just share with what my son said to me when he introduced me to the business. He said, you know, Dad, everybody drinks coffee. Everybody wants to be healthy. Everybody wants to make more money. And so that's a winning combination. So I'm going to just close saying, you know what, I wish you all health, happiness, and success. And if we can help you in any of those categories, we're happy and honored to do it. So with that said, I will officially sign off and wish you a beautiful evening in part of the world and a beautiful day in the other part of the world. So
Thank you
so
so
long
much.
for now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bob.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Bob.
You are very welcome. I've got to figure out how we end this meeting. My software doesn't want to do it.